If you look at my career, I'm a career explorer. I jump industries frequently. I never been worked in the same job or industry twice. So whether it's from like consulting to startup to media agency to media company to creative agency to tech company, I like to learn. There are things I do that are transferable when it comes to leadership, when it comes to problem solving, when it comes to creativity. And I find I'm a better leader because I'm able to figure out what worked well in maybe this one industry and how do I apply it to this other one. I think that gives me a unique advantage than maybe someone who works in the same industry forever.
Some leaders would advise that real career growth comes from locking into one job, one industry, and staying put. But today's guest suggests that traveling into different business sectors has really helped his career grow. Welcome to Marketing Trends. I'm Jeremy Bergeron, and we're pleased to welcome today George Hammer, the Global Head of Marketing for the travel platform Tripadvisor. George has had an incredible set of diverse experiences throughout his very impressive career. It's fair to say he's ventured with some pretty amazing brands like Deloitte, Digitas North America, and IBM, to name a few. Stay tuned for George's take on what skill sets contemporary marketers require to be successful marketing leaders. We cover a lot in this conversation. George is an exceptional marketing leader. I say that a lot on this show because we really get to connect with epic marketing human beings. George is one. This conversation's insightful, it's funny, and I love to be able to go into different categories of conversation with George. He can go anywhere. He's done a lot of cool things. So let's get into this really cool conversation. This podcast is brought to you by Salesforce and the CMO Club. The CMO Club is a global community for senior marketing executives to come together, share ideas, and solve their toughest challenges in a collaborative and trusted environment with other marketing leaders. Salesforce and the CMO Club provide best-in-class programs, events, and a digital platform for marketing leaders to come together and be inspired like never before. Join our global community at thecmoclub.com. For our audience and the rare human out there that doesn't know about Tripadvisor, can you just describe the company Tripadvisor and what you do there?
Yeah, Tripadvisor is in its essence a travel guidance platform. It's the place where people go to figure out where to go. And it could be restaurants, it could be destinations, and a lot since the pandemic, one of the fastest growing things is experiences, right? One of the positive outcomes of what we went through as a society is that we value human connection and experiences more than just going and just zoning out and sitting on a beach. When we go to a place, we want to experience things. And everyone right now is trying to figure out how to have unique experiences, whether it's that cooking class, whether it's skydiving, or it's as simple as going to the place where your parents grew up. So it's that memories and emotional connections are critical to the travel experience. So that's why I'm here. I'm excited to do because I get to help people find their happiness.
From the outside looking in, you probably could have landed a lot of different industries and businesses, and you could have led marketing in a lot of ways. Now, you're still in your, I think, first year at Tripadvisor, right?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time to pick that category. So I just want to understand, kind of take us into that, the time period of you kind of evaluating before you go into Tripadvisor. What did you see there? The world is obviously changing and has been changing quite a bit the last couple of years. So what was was there some hesitation and resistance? Like, man, is this the right time for this? Was this just really well thought out? Take us through that moment before joining Tripadvisor.
If you look at my career, I'm a career explorer. I jump industries frequently. I never been worked in the same job or industry twice. So whether it's from like consulting to startup to media agency to media company to creative agency to tech company, I like to learn. There are things I do that are transferable when it comes to leadership, when it comes to problem solving, when it comes to creativity. And I find I'm a better leader because I'm able to figure out what worked well in maybe this one industry and how do I apply it to this other one. Um, I think that gives me a unique advantage than maybe someone who works in the same industry forever. I'm a middle child too, so I love to challenge myself. And when I get to a place where I set up my job and I feel like my team is stable and they're operationalized and they don't need me, I head down my next career exploration. So it takes a bold company to embrace someone who doesn't have 10, 20 years in their industry. If you look at beauty, right, they're all hiring people who come from their category. CPGs is another one, and others. So one, TripAdvisor had a leadership team that is open to if they realize that they want to change and grow, they want to bring in different people. And I love that. I love companies. If you embrace different diversity of opinion, diversity of all type, that's the company I want to work for. And on top of that, we're a company that's been grounded since the beginning in connecting people. So how can you not be for that? Was I always passionate about travel? No. But what I learned about, I mean, who's not passionate about travel? But it wasn't like my career goal to work in this industry. But as I get older, you learn what's more important to you. And it's the ability to make an impact. It's the double a company. It's the ability to work with great people. And this was a company that for 22 years had like one founder and built a large family-like culture. And it's the ability to have a great story. And I think this industry is going to go through a renaissance. And I like to help paint it.
What stoked the kind of the fire for you early on? Like, I mean, were your parents business oriented and entrepreneurial? Where did this begin for you? Because it's clear that something triggered this exploration, spirit you have, and it certainly served you really well. But where did that start? Where does that come from?
Yeah, my dad's an entrepreneur, so I think that's kind of in my DNA. And he instilled upon me the opportunity, the rewards of being great. For example, in middle school, I was loved Roberto Clemente. He was my favorite baseball player. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I started collecting baseball cards, but I had no income. So he put me to work. I had a certain amount of pay I earned per different grades in school. So then I always got A's because I was trying to maximize my outcome. Certain amount for doing chores around the house. And so I think that it didn't turn me into like a rude capitalist. It turned me into someone who appreciated hard work for an outcome that they care about. And I also grew up in Pittsburgh in more of a blue collar-ish like town. And I learned the value of rolling up your sleeves and leading by doing and setting an example. And so that's what really great entrepreneurs do, right? In building businesses. And so I think that is kind of partly how I got into it. I also think in consulting, my first job, as 21, 22-year-old kid sitting across the table from CEOs, and they hire you because they have problems. And I was like, you go back and you analyze it and you're like, I think I could do this. I think I can. And then when I went to go lead a startup, you realize a year later, as a kind of retrospective on your where you are, you're like, oh shoot, I did that same thing that CEO did. I thought I would never do, right? And it's like, oh, our strategy went off strategy because we followed the money, and it's like, oh
Wow.
shoot, that was so you totally can see how it happens. But I think it's just I love to build things, and so I just follow my passion. It's hard to explain why you are who you are, but you know what you love, and you try to do more of that.
Makes a lot of sense. And, it's a simple way that it's also very profound. It's like, yeah, follow that. And you're another good example and testimony of what that is. Now you have 20 years of business and marketing experience, and, and people can certainly research and see where you've worked, but I'm just going to name these brands, and I would love to hear, what's a lesson you've learned? What's something you took from that experience, right? So we've got Deloitte.
I learned how to work for a ton of different bosses at one time and because I'd be on like 8 projects at once with 8 different bosses, and so I had to learn how to change my style based upon what they want, because it rarely you can change them.
Okay. And also, I think that was the time when you at one point where you were doing tax returns. Was that the
Yes.
for ultra high net worth individuals? What did you learn from that experience? Just curious about that little rabbit trail.
Well, I still do my own taxes now today because it was a
Okay.
valuable skill. But I learned that no job is beneath me. And also, when you're doing this, you learn that everyone who was a high net worth individual owned real estate. So
Mm,
it was probably the best investment you can make.
okay. I love it. All right. Then you went over to Apple Batch. What was it like there? What was the experience there?
I learned marketing through the school of hard knocks there because I was my
Okay.
first real marketing gig. And so I learned how to build a digital business, how to do marketing, how to do social for the first time, how to acquire users at a low cost. I learned pretty much everything. I think everyone should do a startup, and everyone and know that it's it might fail, but you'll those lessons learned you'll take with you forever. I learned how to basically build a they say entrepreneurs are you have to believe in yourself, otherwise no one else could do. And I think that's what entrepreneurship teaches you is when everyone else thinks it's not going to work, you have to learn to believe in yourself.
Okay. Mind share.
I worked integrated marketing communications trying to tell stories across all these different plans, and the agency model's a mess. Uh, and they don't really want to work together. And a lot of time is wasted also. Not wasted. People put so much effort on the reach, the frequency, the math, and I think sometimes they don't they hurry up and do the creative stuff. And what's
Mm,
in the impression matters so much that the math doesn't matter at all if you don't have a great story to tell.
okay. And then you went over and you led digital marketing at Discovery Communications.
Yeah, that was my first time I worked with a Salesforce to create ideas that they took to market for Discovery, and I learned the how to the marketing sales relationship in partnering. We took our Facebook following from like 1 million to 100 million. And so I learned social really there, but it wasn't science. I mean, it wasn't so hard. All we did was stop putting our ads and on-air promotions on social and start programming content that people love. And so I learned to be the thing that people want and not the thing that they try to block.
And then Digitas, you were the senior VP of marketing and advertising at Digitas. What
Yep.
was that like?
I learned the power of the storyboard and in crafting a storyboard for your presentation to clients. If you think in storyboards, it helps you get to a place better. And I also learned that Digitas was great at thinking about how to build utility for clients and for their consumers. Um, I learned a lot about building platforms, not just campaigns. Like Small Business Saturday is like a platform that can sustain. Campaigns come and go, but brands need to actually build things that matter and can last for longer times to make real change with consumers.
And then you ended up at a really small tech company called IBM, and ended up being the chief content officer there. And I can see how the story kind of component infused from your previous time at Digitas is now setting this up. But yeah, talk us through that role at IBM, what that did for, just what the things you worked on, some of the, again, lessons learned there, valuable takeaways from that experience. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. IBM again took a risk on someone who never worked in their industry, never worked at a big brand. Um, but I tend to be the person when the job is not well defined and the KPIs didn't exist. I remember in the interview process, I was interviewing with John Iwata, who was the guy who invented Smarter Planet. He's kind of like a genius in the industry. And I was asking him, like, how many people are in the group? And he's like, I don't know. And I said, what's the KPIs? He's like, we want a leader to come and figure it out. And I was like, this is a good job for me. I can figure this out. but it was also kind of scary because there was hundreds of people around the world who I had to figure out how to connect and lead. But I learned first that product marketing is can't be about the products. It has to be about the people. So in a sense, they should maybe just call it people marketing in the similar sense, because a lot of the work we had to do was not to transform product marketing. It was transform the ability of them to tell stories and understand how to translate the what, like functions, into the why that resonate with people. I also learned that helped lead the transformation for Agile. So I learned what Agile means which is a software development methodology for marketing. And that was not about changing how to get people to go work faster. It was actually a cultural change. It was getting people to embrace trust, respect, openness, and courage and failure. And that, for a company that was 110 years old, was the challenge in getting in changing how we work. And then I helped lead the change of an old sales go-to-market model of selling through sellers to selling through SaaS. And that is a whole marketing actually owning more end-to-end the whole process and using data to constantly optimize what we do. And that is about I think a great opportunity for marketing, to step up and take a leadership role as a discipline, almost like how CPGs have done it, where marketing is more in the forefront. I think in a lot of other industries, marketing is kind of in service of sales. And I believe in, servitude leadership and kind of working with my peers. But I also believe that marketing is the most empathetic discipline, and we're the champions of the audience, and we should have a seat at the table. And I think through SaaS, tech firms have the ability should elevate marketing as a discipline. So I'm champion the transformation for marketing and marketers to be a more prominent role in driving sustainable business growth.
That's huge. Yeah, that we literally had a CMO in earlier this week talking about that, just how much of his energy and effort goes towards being this advocate, at the table and reaching across the aisle and building trust with other stakeholders, and how, the utility of the marketing leader role today is it's the most interesting role to me in the C-suite, is the person leading marketing. And I don't know that it was always the case years past, but in 2022, it's such an interesting time to be a marketing leader.
Yeah. Well, if you think it's what you have to do, you have to be an expert in almost everyone else's
right.
craft, and everyone else thinks they're the expert yours.
Yep. Exactly.
Everyone has a pen so everyone can write.
Exactly.
Everyone knows how to draw. Everyone knows how to do stuff, and so building respect for our craft is harder. I think it's a great craft for me though, because like I said, I'm curious. And so I love trying to figure out at IBM how to build a tech stack, how to use AI and infuse it into marketing, how to use blockchain, how to use these things. And so you have to be like a tech specialist, an analytics specialist, a finance expert, and a creative person. And the reason why many CMOs, I think, fail is we are so siloed now as a discipline that we're not building people who are great at all those things. We build people who are really good at brand, really good at performance, really good at data.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to almost think about how to do the old school rotation programs and kind of build people who know how to pull it all together. And as when I think through building my team now, I'm trying to figure out how do I make cross-discipline athletes. For the ones who want to become CMO someday, it's on me and it's on all of us but it's on, it's what I can do is try to help them be those cross-discipline athletes so they are successful in the future.
Huge. I think I'm very bullish on this idea. I mean, literally yesterday we spoke to the head of marketing for a company called the Fastenal Company. It's this huge supply chain company, $6 billion plus a year. And this amazing guest, Brooke, is the head of marketing there. She started there in training and development and was training employees. Then she got into customer research and built that team. And then she was an AE for the sales leader there. Then she took the job as head of marketing for this multi-billion dollar. But if you look at her path, she learned all about the brand. She learned all about the customer. She learned about how revenue drives growth. And she could speak all those, those languages when she was interviewing against all these more qualified people. She knew too much. And now she's been the marketing leader there for almost 10 years. So to your point, the rotational, that experience, you just see where humans can end up, and the impact they can make at scale across industries because of this, less than straight path.
I believe one of my some of my best employees were people who I placed bets on, and if we want other discipline, if we want everyone else to take risks on us, you have to be willing to take risks on other people, and so I think we should be more open to hiring people from other backgrounds and into the marketing craft, and not assume because someone was a performance marketer their whole life that they can't figure out brand. I think that is demeaning to the human potential.
Imagine for a moment that this next part, is going to be heard by every, chief marketing officer in the Fortune 1000, and that's our audience. We focus on, connecting with those folks. So, and you can think about this for a second, but how would you answer this question? Let's say you have a room full of them and they're all there. How do you get people in 2022 to fall in love with a brand? What are your thoughts on that, your approach there? Anything you'd want to share with your peers?
I think if you write the brief to say, how do I get more people to love me? You start from the point of failure. So the right thing to do is first to really, seek to understand, then to be understood. And so really get in the mindsets of human psychology. So there's tons of data out there. There's not a lot of people who know how to turn data into insights, and there's less people who know how to ask great questions to get to the heart of the problem. Journalists, right, can. The marketing field, maybe we don't really have enough journalistic capabilities to get to the empathy and the insight that matter. But the way to get people to love you is be the thing they love. So figure out how to add value in their lives and not be an ad, but to be a solution. And I think that is something we as marketers still need to do, is we are supposed to drive the 4 Ps, not just promotion, right? Product, price, place, promotion, and culture and tech and everything else that we have to do now these days.
Mm-hmm.
So how to be a brand that has sustainable growth is you need to focus on where the consumer is going to be a couple of years from now and figure out how to add value in their life, how to do that in a good way, and then you'll grow for good.
So you talk a lot about, building a team and a high performance team, and also like building the right team around the right leader, which I think that's a really great distinction. And so what's kind of your approach in just thinking these days around building a team that works well with each other, again, in 2022, in this world, in this day and age, and then building a team that works well with leadership? Because also, like, you are talking to other leaders and their personalities and so you're fostering a really important team, certainly on the marketing side. But what's your approach there?
Most times when you start a job, you inherit a team, right? And different team members need something different out of you. Sometimes they need you to be a coach, sometimes just a mentor, sometimes a champion to get blockers out of their way. Not all the people in your teams have the same level of capability and need the same leadership capability out of you. So I think step 1 is to figure out who you need to be per each one of your kind of leads, because it's easier, just for me personally, to try to adapt my style to them than to try to change all of them, right? The second thing is you have to lead by example. So in how you work with and treat your peers, I think you have to say what you do and do what you say type thing. And then the other thing is I really believe in the power of diverse teams. That can mean a lot of things, but look at the people around the table. And I remember back at Digitas, there was a time when I was part of leading the content team, and we were sitting around the table with my leadership team, and there was four white guys with beards. And I remember that was a moment like, oh my God, we hired everyone who's like us. But they were all diverse thinkers and different backgrounds. But I was like, this needs a change. And from that moment, I've made it a goal of mine to look around the table and to listen around the table. At IBM, I gave them we did personality kind of like tests for fun. They didn't have to do it. Most of my team, I think it was like 75% of my team was introverts. At an agency, it's like almost all extroverts. I think you need to balance that, introverts and extroverts, and then learn how to actually help introverts shine. Give them their room to actually talk, give them their room to actually think, and then come prepared to a meeting to share stuff. Because the power of the introvert is often more reflective and leads to better outcomes. So if you have all just type A people in the room colliding, I don't think you lead to a better place. And so that's something I also do as a leader right now, is try to make sure that I have wide types of personality differences as well.
That's great. That's awesome. So are there personality tests that you use, that you like to use or you prefer?
It's different. I've never had a consistency across companies on what they
Okay.
offer. You know
Okay.
what I did? The team took on their own, and I didn't even like ask that. There's a Adobe what type of creative are you
Okay.
thing,
Okay.
which I
I
thought
know
was
that
really
one.
cool. Yeah, that's always fun to take. The team just took it on their own and started sharing it in Slack to each other, and they all started sharing their profiles, and it was interesting to see how different people are different types of creatives.
Mm.
Um, so I embrace different. They all kind of get to similar conclusions.
Well, that's good. And I'm seeing and hearing a lot more that diversity, it increases it increases revenue, it increases the bottom line the more diverse a team is. And so I love the emphasis on DE&I these days. I think it's not just like pop talk. I think it's genuinely making a difference in businesses. And when you connect with leaders that are building teams in that way, and the way you are, like being really intentional about personality, I think that's to be that granular is huge. I think the impact there is awesome. So let's talk a little bit about this. There's a Deloitte 2022 Global Marketing Trends Report, and this article that's called Authentically Inclusive Marketing. It breaks down some data that Deloitte uncovered in a survey. It says, in our survey of 1,500 global consumers, we found the youngest respondents from 18 to 25 took greater notice of inclusive advertising when making purchase decisions. The authors go on to write that the survey found that 57% of consumers are more loyal to brands that commit to addressing social inequities in their actions. Have you recognized these trends in your own experience?
It's obvious that people are more attuned to what a brand does. People like we as brands are just more awakening to it. This phenomenon was always subliminally there. Reason why Univision and certain other media properties were so successful, right? And certain brands have always been better successful at bringing in diverse consumers than others, because they had a diverse agency mix who thought about in this way, and then they brought in the right talent. People like to buy or relate to people who get them. And so whether this overtly or like it's always been there. We're just now realizing. So brands are sometimes late to the table, which apologies for that. There's no going back now. I think this is a good moment for us, and I do think there are starting to become real measures too, with there's organizations like See Her and others out there that are creating like gem scores, and others that are giving us the ability to actually be accountable in this world. It's always worked. Some brands just didn't pay attention as much, and other brands won based upon competing in this, right? So now brands are intentionally leaning in, and I think we're all better for it.
Okay, so think of a time in your epic career, and think about a time when you faced a crucial moment in your career. Right? We've already talked about some amazing places you've worked, and you've had such a vast well to draw from. But think about a time when you faced a crucial moment in your career as a leader, and then the sort of moment that can kind of make or break a situation or an opportunity.
Well, I was at IBM, and we created a new way to work to get from brief to creative to optimization. And it was pretty much myself and a few people locked ourselves in a room in a hotel for a week, came up with this way to work agile. And then we said, okay, how are we going to roll it out? Well, there's 22 offices around the world. We're going to go there as a leadership team, present on stage, and then and then we'll spend the next couple days in like deep dive sessions, training them hands on how to work differently, and then we'll go away, and then the world will be better, right?
Sounds great. Yeah.
It'll work, right? And we did this, and I remember sitting back, looking at the data, and still like campaigns still are performing the same. People are still doing X, Y, Z. It's still taking just as long. It's still so performance is the same, the speed's the same. Has anything changed? And that was a pivotal moment where like, what do you do? And I realized in my career that people don't listen to you because of your title. And people might not change because what you say is the right thing to do. So that was a moment where we decided like, okay, what do I do to try to make change sticky?
Yeah. Any follow up to that? Like what would you say is the takeaway from that you would do differently maybe?
Well, yeah, I was waiting for you to say, so what did you do?
Yeah, exactly. So what is it? You left us hanging. This is good.
Right. Cliffhanger. I created then an innovation hub. We branded it the Mint. It's the place to bring your fresh ideas, and we'll fund change together. We'll co-fund it with you. And we adopted a few teams and their campaigns, brought them into this system. They worked differently with us. We worked in Agile. We built things that were story based versus other based. We kind of did the whole system differently. We put them out there, and the teams we adopted too. Some of them were the biggest naysayers, the ones most likely to not adopt. And then we measured performance, and we saw a 78% increase in campaign performance.
Wow!
And then I created video testimonials of these people talking about what it was like, and it was the people plus their agency plus us, like all talking about working together and how fun it was, and also led to better outcomes. And so it turned the biggest blockers into the biggest advocates, and did like an internal comms campaign, and that helped the people who were on board to start sharing it with their other peers and CMOs of business units to start getting on board. And over time, we were able to drive change because people saw that it worked, but they saw it was more fun. They saw their peers doing it, and they got to do it beside us in this kind of fun incubator. So we started getting like 20 or 30 people pitching ideas, wanting to be part of it, and we couldn't even take as much demand as we had in order to partner with us to do this stuff.
Wow. So you basically invited cooks into the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we actually want you to come in here and help us cook up this thing versus us just cooking it up and presenting it to you. Like, let's create, a hub. I love this. And then you brought them in, you brought all the cooks in the kitchen, and then they can start, creating. That's beautiful.
I mean, if you think about it, marketers do campaigns with briefs, and they figure out they don't talk ad audiences, the good ones. They figure out how to change behavior this way. So we should treat internal initiatives the same way. That's what we did.
Fantastic. Do you want to get into some lightning round questions?
Sure, let's do it.
You ready? Okay. So for our audience out there, we appreciate you staying with us. And this podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. Shout out to Salesforce. When you think about marketing and engagement, head over to salesforce.com/marketing. We've got George Hammer. He does marketing at Tripadvisor. You might want to check him out. He's a pretty cool cat. George, welcome. We're ready for the lightning round. But the first question is, are you ready for the lightning round?
I see the storm clouds coming. I'm ready.
Okay. First question. You're described as a traveler and an improviser on your Twitter bio. Where's your favorite travel destination?
Seychelles.
Can you tell us about a memorable time you had to improvise?
This interview.
Love that answer. Last time you tried something new?
A Chinese 100-year-old egg.
What's a life lesson you learned the hard way?
Running a marathon is
Oof.
hard.
Oof. Activity that makes you lose track of time.
Playing with my kids.
I second that one. If you could choose one book as a mandatory read for all high school students, what book would that be?
I wouldn't read a book. I would get an apprenticeship.
Love that answer. You're full of great answers today, George. Would you rather lose all of your old memories or never be able to make new ones?
Never make new ones.
If you have to build a marketing team from scratch, let's say tomorrow, whole marketing team, Tripadvisor's gone, you got to hire the first role. What's the first role and why?
Someone you trust. Because if you're going to come in and try to change something, then you need someone who got your back.
No one has ever said that answer, by the way. You hear data science or creative or, copywriter or campaign. No one said that. And that's a fantastic answer. What's something that impresses you?
Something that impresses me is simplistic design.
If you had access to a time machine, where and when would you go?
I'm a history buff, so I'd like to go meet George Washington because I believe, his leadership skills was awesome.
So at this stage in your life, what is success for you?
Continuously learning.
What is your favorite app on your phone?
The Tide app, so I know.
What? That's also a first.
It's a Tide Alert app. I live near the water and sometimes my area floods, but I love to know when I can sneak out for an hour and go on the paddleboard.
Okay. What is a skill you believe everyone should have?
The fearlessness to fail.
Love it. Okay, last question. What is one thing you want to do this year that you've never done before?
Learn how to build a garden.
Okay. George, thank you so much for being a part of Marketing Trends. This was such an insightful conversation. Congratulations to you, the whole squad at Tripadvisor. I know there's definitely no slowing you down. We'll be paying attention to the growth, but thank you so much for being here. This was awesome.
Thank you so much. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by Salesforce and the CMO Club. The CMO Club is a global community for senior marketing executives to come together, share ideas, and solve their toughest challenges in a collaborative and trusted environment with other marketing leaders. Salesforce and the CMO Club provide best-in-class programs, events, and a digital platform for marketing leaders to come together and be inspired like never before. Join our global community at thecmoclub.com.